This week, our featured album of the week, When the Devil Goes Blind, comes from US singer-songwriter Charlie Parr. Tim Ritchie describes his sound as authentic blues, and Charlie Parr also sings folk. He works with both a banjo and a guitar. One listener emailed us, Lynn in WA, saying she saw Charlie's show at the Perth Blues Club and said it was absolutely fantastic. Well, to give the rest of you a taste of what Lynn enjoyed, Charlie Parr joined us in the breakfast studio, I'm happy to say. Charlie, hello, welcome to Radio National Breakfast.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here today.
Charlie, folk or blues? What's your first love?
That's both, I guess. When I was a kid, my dad had a bunch of records in the house, and I guess most of it was folk records and real old country western music and some blues records in there. For him, and kind of now for me too, that all that stuff kind of blends together in a big way, into kind of the more acoustic music. But it's kind of all folk music in a lot of ways.
And the story of your life reads a bit like a traditional blues song. You left school pretty early, you drifted around a bit, you even spent the obligatory 30 days in a county jail.
Did, yeah.
What got you to where you are in that life story?
Well, it was a lot, that part when I was a little kid, and my dad playing records all the time and really put a love of music into me. My dad was, he was kind of a tough customer. When I dropped out of high school and stuff, I guess I wasn't, too far from following in his footsteps and doing some more or less stupid things. But then, I kind of got back down to trying to practice the guitar after all that, and it worked out all right.
With some success. Why don't we share that with everyone else now? Will you play us a song?
I will, yeah, thanks.
What are you going to play for us?
This is called Where Are You Gonna Be When the Good Lord Calls You Home. Not the devil calls you home.
You can tell it to the cops. There ain't nobody gonna listen to you till your line stops. Tell me where you gonna be when your name comes to the top. Now you're gonna react to the moving hand of God, trembling in your boots with your face down in the side. You're gonna run like hell, brother, and hope you don't get caught. Tell me how you gonna react to the moving hand of God. Well, your baby in the sand when Jesus knocks upon your door. Your dreams will wash away when you crash on through the floor. All you try to hold on to will never stand no more. Well, your baby in the sand when Jesus knocks upon your door. Call, will you be ready when what you thought was matter starts to fall? You can call upon your neighbor, your family and all. Will you be ready at the fountain for the Lamb of God to call? Tell me where you're gonna be when them horsemen ride you down, for closing on the land of a farmer who is down. You'll be jacking up the rent on a single mom downtown. Tell me where you're gonna be when them horsemen ride you down.
Fabulous, and that's a track off the album we've been featuring this week, When the Devil Goes Blind. Charlie, you're pretty familiar with Australia. I know you've been here, you've toured with Paul Kelly, who we spoke to on Breakfast yesterday. One of your songs, I think, even featured on Underbelly. Is that right?
I think so,
I think it did, and that sort of reminds me that you have a bit of a fascination with outlaws. In particular, our own Ned Kelly gets featured in one of your songs.
Yeah.
What's your thing with Ned Kelly?
Well, I kind of got hooked on the whole thing when I got here the first time. I landed in Melbourne, and they had the armor in the library in there, and I went in there and
Ned Kelly's armor.
Ned Kelly's armor and his rifle, and I went in there and I just became fascinated, and I mean, part of that kind of goes back again to my dad, who was fascinated with Jesse James and some of those guys and Pretty Boy Floyd, and we'd go on family trips to somewhere and end up going way out of our way to be somewhere else that happened to have some artifact, somewhere where Jesse James was or the place he had gotten shot, and we'd view the bullet hole and we'd view the Bible that he read and all this kind of stuff, and so I was, these artifacts just completely, captivated me. I read all the books, and Paul Kelly gave me a copy of Our Sunshine, and I tore into that, so yeah, I'm just a sucker for that stuff.
And what do the American audiences think of the Ned Kelly reference?
I gotta explain it a lot because he's not as well known over there, so it's always fun to educate my folks on that.
Okay. Charlie, it's great to have you with us. I know you're in the middle of a tour. Where are you playing next?
Tonight we're going to Cronulla to play at the Brass Monkey.
Fantastic. And tomorrow Newcastle, I think?
Yep.
Then off to Maitland.
And then on Monday morning I fly for home.
All right, Charlie, it's great to have you in the Breakfast Studio. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you very much
and thanks for your album, When the Devil Goes Blind. We've really enjoyed it on Breakfast this week. And if you want to hear details of that tour again, www.charlieparr.com. Details of his tour right there.